The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the center of the galaxy like a giant metal city. It was home to the Galactic Council, where the most powerful alien species made decisions that affected billions of lives across thousands of worlds. Today, the great meeting hall buzzed with excitement and anger. Representatives from 17 different alien races had gathered for one purpose: to deal with the human problem. Ambassador Krell stood at the center of the circular chamber. He was tall and covered in green scales that shimmered under the bright lights. His species, the Dominion, had ruled space for over 3,000 years. Behind him, holographic displays showed star maps with red dots marking human colonies spread across dozens of star systems. "Look at this," Krell said, pointing at the display with one of his forearms. 57 human colonies in just 200 years. They spread like a disease across our galaxy. Murmurs of agreement echoed through the chamber. The aliens nodded. Their various heads clicked their mandibles and flashed their bioluminescent patches and patterns that meant yes in their languages. To Krell's left sat Ambassador Vex from the collective. Her pale blue skin glowed softly as she spoke with the voice of her entire hive mind. "The humans take resources that belong to established species. They terraform planets without permission. They ignore our ancient territorial agreements." On the right, General Borg of the Empire tapped his metal claws against his chair. His robot body was built for war, and his red eyes glowed with contained anger. They refuse to follow galactic law. They expand wherever they want. They act like they own space itself. More voices joined in. The spider-like weavers complained about humans disrupting trade routes. The gas-form drifters were angry about humans building stations in their migration paths. The crystal beings called Shapers accused humans of stealing mineral rights on dead worlds. At the center of all this anger stood one small human figure. Ambassador Lisa Morgan was 45 years old, with brown hair and simple blue clothing. She looked tiny compared to the massive alien beings around her, but she stood straight and calm as the accusations flew. Krell raised his hand for silence. The chamber fell quiet except for the soft hum of life support systems and the distant sound of space traffic outside the station. "Human," Krell said, making the word sound like an insult. "Your species has 48 standard hours to begin evacuation of all Outer Rim territories. Return to your birth world. Stay on Earth. Stop this reckless expansion into space that rightfully belongs to others." Lisa looked around the chamber. Hundreds of alien eyes stared at her from dozens of different species. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had multiple heads or bodies made of living metal. A few looked like floating jellyfish or walking trees. All of them wanted her people gone. "And if we refuse?" Lisa asked quietly. Krell's scaled lips pulled back in what his species considered a smile. "Then you will face the combined military might of 17 allied civilizations." The chamber erupted in what sounded like cheering, though each species made different sounds. The Dominion hissed. The Empire clanked their metal parts together. The collective hummed in unison. The weavers clicked their mandibles rapidly. "General." Borg stood up, his metal body gleaming. "The Empire alone has 10,000 warships. Our weapons can crack planets in half. Our shields can stop any attack your primitive technology might attempt." Ambassador Vex's voice carried the weight of billions of minds speaking as one. "The collective has fought wars for 5,000 years. We know every battle strategy ever used. We can predict your moves before you make them." A new voice spoke from the shadows at the back of the chamber. It belonged to High Mystic Nail of the Ancients. Being so old, they claim to have watched stars being born. "The Ancients have technology beyond your understanding. We can bend reality itself. We can make your ships forget how to fly." Lisa listened to each threat calmly. She did not seem frightened or surprised. When the noise died down, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small communication device. Before I respond, she said, I need to send a message to Earth Command. Krell laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Call for help, human. Beg your leaders to reconsider. Perhaps they have more sense than you do. Lisa activated the communicator. The device projected her voice across space faster than light, reaching Earth in seconds despite the vast distance. Earth Command, this is Ambassador Morgan on Nexus Prime. The Galactic Council has issued their ultimatum. 48 hours to evacuate all Outer Rim colonies or face military action from 17 allied species. A crackling response came back immediately. Understood, Ambassador. What are your instructions? Lisa looked up at Krell and the assembled aliens. She saw the confidence in their eyes, the certainty that humans would back down when faced with impossible odds. They had probably never met a species that refused to surrender when outnumbered. Transmit code word Anvil to all colonies, Lisa said clearly. Full implementation. No exceptions. Code word Anvil confirmed. Transmitting now. To all human settlements. Lisa put the communicator back in her pocket. The aliens stared at her, some confused by the strange word, others wondering what kind of military code it might be. Krell leaned forward. What is this Anvil? Some kind of weapon? Lisa shook her head. Not a weapon, an instruction. What kind of instruction? An instruction that you have made a fundamental error in your calculations. General Borg's red eyes flashed brighter. What error? We have counted your ships. We know your population numbers. We have analyzed your technology. You are outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Lisa smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a cruel smile or a frightened one. It was the kind of smile a teacher might give to students who had missed something obvious. You counted our military forces, she said. You analyzed our government ships. You looked at our official colonial defense fleets. Yes, Krell said impatiently. And they are pathetically small compared to our combined might. But you forgot to count the most important thing, which is... Lisa's smile grew wider. You forgot to count the humans. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Ambassador Vex spoke for many of them. We do not understand. We did count your people. Each colony has between 10,000 and 1 million inhabitants. You counted them as colonists, Lisa said, as civilians, as non-combatants who would run when threatened. She walked to the center of the chamber, directly under the bright lights that made her seem even smaller among the towering alien forms. But that is not what they are, she continued. They are people defending their homes, and humans do not run from home. We defend it. The chamber fell silent. Outside, ships moved through space carrying news of the ultimatum to every corner of the galaxy. Soon, the 17 allied fleets would gather at the edge of human space, expecting to find empty colonies and fleeing transports. Instead, they would discover something that would change their understanding of warfare forever. Lisa looked up at Krell one last time. We decline your ultimatum, Ambassador. And may whatever gods you worship have mercy on your souls. 3 days after the ultimatum, the alien fleets gathered at the edge of human space. Admiral Voss commanded the largest war fleet in Dominion history. His flagship, the Death of Stars, was 5 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. Beside him floated the collective's hive ships, each one home to millions of warrior drones. General Borg's Empire fleet bristled with metal spikes and glowing weapons. The Ancients' mysterious vessels seemed to bend light around them, making space itself look twisted and wrong. Begin sensor sweeps, Admiral Voss ordered. Locate the human evacuation ships. We will escort them back to Earth and then claim their abandoned colonies. The sensor officer, a young Dominion named Keck, stared at his displays with confusion. Admiral, I am not detecting any evacuation ships. Check again. The humans must be fleeing. No rational species would stay to fight against these odds. Keck. Ran the scans 3 more times. Each result was the same. Sir, there are no evacuation ships. The colonies are still fully populated, but I am detecting something else. What? Construction activity. Massive construction activity at every human settlement. Admiral Voss frowned. His scales shifted color from green to dark blue, a sign of confusion in his species. Construction? What are they building? Unknown, sir. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. On the human colony of New Hope, 12-year-old Tim Baker helped his father carry metal beams to the construction site. All around them, the colony's 20,000 residents worked together like ants building a hill. Children carried tools. Elderly humans operated heavy machinery. Scientists abandoned their labs to help with welding. Dad, why are we building guns instead of getting on ships? Tim asked. His father, Mike Baker, was a farmer who had never held a weapon before 3 days ago. Now he was helping install plasma cannons around the colony's perimeter. Because this is our home, son. And nobody takes our home away. Captain Rex Thompson stood on the bridge of the UE's Defiance, the only military ship in the New Hope system. He watched thousands of civilians transform their peaceful farming colony into a fortress. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarah Moon, looked up from her displays with amazement. Sir, they have built 47 defensive platforms in 72 hours. The civilians finished the construction 6 hours ahead of schedule. Rex shook his head in wonder. When Earth Command sent the Anvil code, I thought they were crazy. Now I think they might be genius. The Anvil code was simple. Every human colony would defend itself using whatever they had. No evacuation. No retreat. No surrender. Turn every settlement into a fortress and make the aliens pay for every inch of space. Lieutenant Moon pointed at her screen. Sir, I'm getting a transmission from the alien fleet. They want to talk. Rex straightened his uniform. Put them through. Admiral Voss appeared on the screen, his scaled face twisted with confusion and growing anger. Human Captain, this is Admiral Voss of the Dominion Fleet. We demand an explanation for your colony's behavior. What do you mean, Admiral? Our sensors show massive military construction at your settlement. This violates the terms of our ultimatum. You were ordered to evacuate, not fortify. Rex smiled calmly. Actually, Admiral, you ordered us to leave our homes. We declined. We never agreed to your ultimatum. You cannot seriously intend to fight. Our combined forces number over 2 million ships. Your colonial militia has less than 50 vessels. That's true, Rex admitted. But you made one critical error in your calculations. Admiral Voss leaned forward on his command throne. And what error was that? You counted ships, Admiral. You should have counted humans. The alien commander's confusion deepened. I do not understand. Rex gestured toward the main screen, which showed the colony below. Thousands of humans worked on defenses while children played in nearby parks and elderly couples tended gardens. Between weapon emplacements, you see a military target, Admiral. We see a neighborhood. And the thing about humans is, we get very angry when someone threatens our neighborhoods. At that moment, the colony's communication array activated. Instead of military broadcasts, it began transmitting something the aliens had never heard before: human music. The song was called Sweet Home Alabama, and it played loudly enough for every ship in the system to hear. Admiral Voss stared at his communication officer. What is that noise? It appears to be some form of human cultural expression, sir. Music, I think. The song was followed by a voice transmission from the colony. It was 8-year-old Emma Rodriguez, speaking from the colony's school playground. Hi, space people. My name is Emma. My teacher says you want to take our home away, but this is where my friends live. This is where my dog Buddy is buried, under the big tree. This is where my mom grows the best flowers in the galaxy. You can't have it. The transmission ended. The alien fleet fell silent. In all their thousands of years of conquest, they had never been refused by a child. General Borg's metal voice crackled over the fleet communication system. This is ridiculous. They are civilians. They have no training. They have no proper weapons. That's where you're wrong, Rex said, still broadcasting to the alien fleet. Let me introduce you to some of our defenders. The screen changed to show Mike Baker, the farmer turned gunner. This is Mike. Yesterday he was growing corn. Today he's operating a plasma cannon. Mike, tell the Admiral how you learned to shoot. Mike grinned and waved at the camera. Well, I used to hunt rabbits back on Earth. Figure shooting at spaceships can't be much harder. They're bigger targets. The screen shifted again. This is Dr. Helen Cruz, our colony's head physician. Helen, what are you doing today? A middle-aged woman in a white coat looked up from a device she was building. I'm converting our medical scanners into targeting systems. Turns out finding tumors and finding enemy weak spots use similar technology. Another shift. This is Bob Martinez. Bob runs the colony's water treatment plant. Bob, explain your new job. A cheerful man with grease-stained hands held up a complex piece of machinery. I figured out how to turn our water pipes into a weapons delivery system. Anyone who lands on our colony is going to get a very unpleasant surprise. Admiral Voss watched in growing horror as the humans introduced more of their defenders. Bartender who now commanded a squadron of converted cargo ships. A school teacher who had organized the colony's children into an efficient supply network. A retired grandmother who had somehow turned her knitting circle into a code-breaking unit. This is impossible, Admiral Voss muttered. Civilians cannot become soldiers in 3 days. Rex's voice carried across space with quiet confidence. You're right, Admiral. They're not soldiers. They're something much more dangerous. What could be more dangerous than trained warriors? People defending their homes. The transmission ended. Across the alien fleet, commanders stared at their screens in confusion. They had prepared to fight an army. Instead, they faced an entire civilization that refused to run. On New Hope, the construction continued. Children sang songs while carrying ammunition. Elderly humans shared stories while building bunkers. Scientists worked alongside mechanics to create weapons from farming. Equipment. The aliens had expected fear. They had expected evacuation ships and empty colonies. Instead, they found 20,000 humans who had decided that some things were worth fighting for, no matter the odds. Admiral Voss looked at his tactical display. The human colony glowed with defensive systems built by people who had never seen war before. Around him, the greatest military fleet in galactic history prepared to attack a farming settlement defended by civilians. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Voss began to wonder if his fleet was big enough. The first battle began at dawn on the 4th day. Admiral Voss chose the Kepler 442 system for the initial attack because it seemed like the easiest target. The human colony there had only 15,000 people and no military ships. The Dominion fleet approached with confidence. This will be a simple demonstration, Admiral Voss told his officers. We destroy their defenses, they surrender, and the other colonies see what happens to those who resist. The Dominion ships had shields that could stop any known weapon. Their sensors could predict enemy movements before they happened. Their experience came from conquering hundreds of worlds over 3,000 years. What they met instead was Private Jake Wilson. Jake was 23 years old and had worked in construction before joining the colonial militia 2 years ago. He had never fought in a real battle. He had never even left the planet before today. But when the alien ships appeared in the sky above his home, Jake climbed into his modified mining vessel and did something that changed galactic warfare forever. He flew straight at the biggest enemy ship while playing music at maximum volume. Attention. Alien fleet. Jake broadcast over all frequencies. This is Jake Wilson from New Austin Colony. You're making me miss my daughter's 3rd birthday party. That makes me very angry. Admiral Voss watched in disbelief as the tiny mining ship approached. His flagship. What is that human doing? Does he wish to surrender? Unknown, sir, replied his tactical officer. He appears to be flying directly toward our shields. The mining ship crashed into the Dominion shields at full speed. The shields held, but something unexpected happened. Jake's ship was equipped with an industrial mining laser designed to cut through solid rock. When it hit the shield energy, it created a feedback loop that the Dominion had never encountered before. The shield collapsed. Impossible, Admiral Voss shouted. Our shields have never failed. Jake's ship spun through the gap and landed on the winded hull of the flagship. His voice crackled over the communication system. Hey, anybody know how to turn off one of these big ships? I've got bolt cutters and about 30 minutes before my air runs out. What followed was the strangest battle in galactic history. Jake used his mining equipment to cut holes in the flagship's hull while giving a running commentary to anyone listening. Okay, I found what looks like a power cable. I'm gonna cut it and see what happens. Oh, that made all the lights go out. That's probably not good for you guys. On the planet below, the rest of the colony watched their neighbor fight an entire alien fleet by himself. Then they decided to help. Dr. Elena Vasquez was the colony's only doctor. She had studied alien biology and knew more about Dominion physiology than any other human. She also happened to live next door to Bob Martinez, a plumber who had figured out something interesting about the colony's water system. Bob, Elena called over the fence between their houses while laser fire lit up the sky above them. Remember that idea you had about the water pipes? Bob grinned and held up a device he had been building. You mean turning our entire water network into a chemical weapon delivery system? Yeah, I remember. Elena pulled out a medical scanner and a bag of supplies from the hospital. I've got sedatives, paralytic agents, and a few other things that might be useful. Think you can get them into the aliens' life support systems? Give me 20 minutes. While Jake fought the flagship in space, Elena and Bob turned their quiet residential neighborhood into a war zone. Elena used her medical knowledge to create non-lethal but highly effective chemical combinations. Bob used his understanding of plumbing to deliver them exactly where they needed to go. The first Dominion landing party hit the ground expecting to face frightened civilians. Instead, they walked into a cloud of sedative gas that made them fall asleep standing up. The second landing party wore protective suits. They made it 3 blocks before Bob's second surprise hit them. The colony's sprinkler system activated, covering the aliens with a sticky foam that hardened in minutes, trapping them like insects in amber. This is Elena Vasquez broadcasting from New Austin, Elena announced while treating wounded defenders. For anyone watching, I want you to know that the Dominion's weakness is their overconfidence. They never expected civilians to fight back. She gestured to Bob, who was installing another device in a water main. My neighbor Bob is demonstrating that you don't need military training to defend your home. You just need to be creative. The battle spread throughout the colony. Mary Chun, who ran the local daycare, organized the evacuation of children while simultaneously coordinating supply deliveries to the front lines. She treated moving people and equipment like managing 30 hyperactive kids during a field trip. Tommy, take these bandages to Sector 7. Lisa, those soldiers in Sector 3 need more ammunition. Everyone else, snack time is in 10 minutes, and I don't want to hear any complaining. Tom O'Brien, who owned the colony's only bar, found himself commanding a squadron of converted passenger shuttles. He had never piloted anything bigger than a delivery truck, but he knew how to get people where they needed to go. "Okay, folks," Tom announced to his volunteer pilots. "We're gonna fly these shuttles like I run my bar. Keep everybody happy. Don't let anyone fight. And if things get too crazy, we cut them off." His squadron consisted of a school bus driver, 2 taxi pilots, and a woman who delivered groceries for a living. None of them had military training. All of them knew their neighborhoods better than any tactical computer. The aliens' sophisticated battle strategies crumbled against human unpredictability. Where military doctrine called for retreat, humans brought reinforcements from the local community center. Where logic demanded surrender, humans brought coffee and homemade sandwiches to the front lines. Up in space, Jake finally figured out how to shut down the flagship's main computer. "Found the brain," he announced cheerfully. "Gonna unplug it now. This might hurt a little." The massive Dominion flagship went dark and began drifting helplessly through space. Admiral Vos found himself trapped on his own bridge while a human construction worker gave advice on ship repair over the intercom. "You know, this is a pretty nice ship," Jake said. "But whoever designed it never had to fix anything. All your important stuff is in really hard-to-reach places. That's just poor planning." The battle ended when the remaining Dominion ships retreated, leaving behind their flagship, half their landing force, and their reputation for invincibility. The humans had won using mining equipment, plumbing supplies, and the kind of teamwork that comes from people who genuinely care about each other. Commander Zek of the Empire's Third Fleet watched the battle recordings with growing horror. "They turned agricultural equipment into weapons," he reported to his superiors. "A group of farmers launched explosive vegetables at our destroyers using a giant catapult. The vegetables won." Across the galaxy, alien commanders studied the battle footage and came to a terrifying realization. They were not fighting an army. They were fighting an entire civilization that refused to give up their homes. And that civilization was making up the rules as they went along. News of the human victory at Kepler 442 spread across the galaxy faster than light. On every alien homeworld, citizens watched the battle recordings with disbelief. The mighty Dominion fleet had been defeated by farmers and plumbers. The Galactic Council called an emergency meeting. Ambassador Krell's scales had turned pale gray, a sign of deep worry in his species. "This changes everything," he announced to the assembled representatives. "The humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like like people defending their homes," finished Ambassador Vex of the Collective. Her hive mind was struggling to process what they had witnessed. "Our battle algorithms cannot predict their behavior because they are not following any known military patterns." High Mystic Nal of the Ancients spoke from the shadows. "In 5 million years of existence, we have never encountered a species that turns gardening tools into weapons. Their unpredictability makes them dangerous. But the alien leaders decided to continue their campaign. Surely one human victory was just luck. They chose their next target carefully, New Dublin, a colony of 50,000 humans on the edge of explored space. General Borg led the assault personally. His Empire fleet surrounded the planet with overwhelming force. He expected the larger colony to surrender quickly when they saw what had happened to the Dominion. Instead, he discovered something that shocked him even more than the first battle. Entire population of New Dublin was working together like a single organism. Tom O'Brien, the local bartender, found himself commanding the colony's defense because the military commander had been injured in a transport accident the day before. "I don't know much about fighting wars," Tom announced to his 50,000 neighbors over the colony-wide communication system, "but I know how to run a bar. And running a bar is all about keeping people happy and dealing with troublemakers." Tom's strategy was simple. He treated the alien invasion like managing a very busy Friday night at his bar. When customers got too rowdy, you either calmed them down or threw them out. Mary Chun, who ran the colony's largest daycare center, became Tom's second in command. She was used to organizing large groups of people who did not always want to cooperate. "Listen up, everyone," Mary broadcast to the colony. "We're going to treat this like field day at the school. Everyone has a job. Everyone stays calm. And at the end, we'll have ice cream." The colony's defense plan was unlike anything in military history. Instead of soldiers in units, they organized by neighborhoods. Each residential block became a defensive team led by whoever the neighbors trusted most. In Sector 7, that was Mrs. Davis, an 80-year-old grandmother who had raised 6 children and run the local library for 40 years. She knew everyone in her neighborhood and exactly what they were good at. "Ginny, you're fast, so you handle communications. Susan, you're organized, so you manage supplies. Frank, you're stubborn, so you're in charge of making sure nobody gives up." When the Empire's landing ships approached, they expected to face defensive positions manned by trained soldiers. Instead, they encountered something that defied all logic. The humans had turned their entire colony into one giant neighborhood watch program. Every street corner had someone watching. Every rooftop had a lookout. Every basement had been converted into a supply depot run by someone's grandmother. The aliens could not move anywhere without 50,000 humans knowing exactly where they were. Dr. Sarah Kim, the colony's head engineer, worked with her neighbor Pete the mechanic to create defensive systems from whatever they could find. Pete knew how to fix anything with moving parts. Sarah understood how to make things that had never moved before suddenly start working. "Pete, can you make this farming tractor move faster?" Sarah asked. "Sure thing, Doc. How fast do you need it to go?" "Fast enough to ram into that alien tank over there." Pete grinned and pulled out his tools. "Now you're talking my language." Within hours, Pete and Sarah had converted the colony's agricultural equipment into a mobile defense force. Tractors became assault vehicles. Irrigation systems became weapons platforms. Even the children's playground equipment was modified to serve double duty as a communication relay. The strangest moment came when 8-year-old Emma Rodriguez, who had been evacuated to the colony's secure center, asked if she could send a message to the alien commanders. "My teacher says it's important to talk to people when there's a problem," Emma explained to the adults around her. Tom O'Brien, still commanding the defense from his bar, decided to let her try. "Can't hurt," he said. "Maybe aliens need to hear from kids too." Emma's message was broadcast on all frequencies. It reached every ship in the Empire fleet and was automatically translated into hundreds of alien languages. "Hi, space people. My name is Emma Rodriguez. I'm 8 years old, and I want to tell you something important." She held up a drawing she had made with crayons. It showed her colony with stick figures of all her neighbors. "My daddy says you want to take our home away. But this is where my friends are. This is where my dog Buddy is buried under the big tree by the school. This is where my mom grows the prettiest flowers in the whole galaxy. This is where Mrs. Davis tells the best stories. This is where Tom makes the best hot chocolate when it's cold." Emma's voice was clear and serious, the way children sound when they are trying to explain something very important to adults. "You can't have it because it's ours, not because we own it, but because we love it. And when you love something, you take care of it. You don't let bullies take it away." The message ended with Emma holding up her drawing toward the camera. "See? This is our home. It is all the people we care about. That's why we won't leave." The effect on the alien fleet was immediate and unexpected. Empire soldiers stopped advancing. Collective drones paused in their attack patterns. Even the ancient beings found themselves hesitating. General Borg stared at his tactical display. His metal face could not show emotion, but his voice carried confusion. "Command, we have a problem. The humans are not behaving like a military target." "Explain," came the reply from Empire headquarters. "They are behaving like a family. A very large, very stubborn family that refuses to leave their house. The battle for New Dublin lasted 3 days. The humans never fought like soldiers. Instead, they fought like neighbors protecting neighbors. When one block was threatened, people from other blocks came to help. When supplies ran low, someone's grandmother appeared with sandwiches and ammunition. The Empire fleet retreated on the 4th day, leaving behind their reputation and their confidence. General Borg's final report was one sentence: "We cannot defeat an entire civilization that fights like it's protecting children." Emma's message went viral across 17 different alien species communication networks. For the first time, the galaxy saw humans not as conquerors or warriors, but as people who loved their homes so much they would risk everything to protect them. On alien worlds across the galaxy, beings who had lived in space for thousands of years began to remember what it felt like to have a place worth fighting for. The war did not end with a great final battle. Instead, it ended with understanding. After Emma Rodriguez's message spread across the galaxy, something unexpected happened. Alien civilians began asking questions their governments did not want to answer. On the Dominion homeworld, a young scaled child named Kix watched Emma's drawing of her colony. He turned to his parent and asked, "Why don't we have a home like that?" The parent could not answer. The Dominion had lived in space stations and warships for so long that they had forgotten what it meant to have a place where flowers grew and dogs were buried under trees. Similar conversations happened across 17 different worlds. Collective. Drones began experiencing something their hive mind had never felt before: loneliness for a place that did not exist. Empire soldiers asked their commanders why they spent their lives destroying homes instead of building them. The turning point came when human colonies began broadcasting their daily lives during the conflict. Instead of hiding, they shared everything. On New Dublin, Tom O'Brien set up cameras around his bar. Alien audiences watched humans sharing meals while sirens wailed outside. They saw children playing games between air raids. They witnessed elderly humans teaching young defenders how to repair equipment while telling stories about their own lost HOMEWORLDS. Mrs. Davis, the librarian who had become a neighborhood defense leader, started reading stories to the colony's children every evening. The broadcasts reached alien ships, and soon enemy soldiers were listening to human fairy tales while sitting in their attack positions. Once upon a time, Mrs. Davis read, there was a little house in a big forest. The house was small and simple, but it was filled with love, and that love made it the most beautiful home in the world. The alien soldiers listening had not heard bedtime stories for centuries. Some species had forgotten that such things existed. Captain Rex Thompson's final broadcast became the most watched communication in galactic history. Standing on the bridge of his damaged ship above New Hope, he looked directly into the camera and spoke to the alien fleet surrounding human space. "You told us to run," Rex said quietly. "You expected us to abandon everything we had built, everyone we had grown to love, every dream we had planted in new soil." Behind him, the view screen showed the colony below. Humans were rebuilding damaged structures while children played in the streets. Gardens bloomed between defensive positions. People worked together with the easy cooperation of neighbors who knew they could count on each other. "But here is what you did not understand about humans," Rex continued. "We do not run from home. We run toward it. Every day, in every way, we try to make our homes better places for the people we love." The camera panned across the colony, showing ordinary people doing ordinary things in extraordinary circumstances. A woman hanging laundry while her husband repaired a damaged wall. Teenagers playing music on a rooftop while their parents prepared dinner below. An elderly couple tending their garden while their grandchildren helped load ammunition nearby. "This is what you tried to take from us," Rex said. "Not territory, not resources, not strategic positions. You tried to take away the places where we belong." Admiral Voss, watching from his flagship, felt something he had never experienced before. His species had conquered worlds for thousands of years, but they had never built anything permanent. They had never created a place where children could grow up feeling safe and loved. The formal ceasefire was signed in an unusual location, the community center of New Dublin. Tom O'Brien insisted on hosting the ceremony in his neighborhood, because he said that was where the real decisions should be made. Representatives from all 17 alien species came to the small building, where humans held wedding receptions and birthday parties. The walls were covered with children's drawings and photographs of community events. Ambassador Krell arrived expecting a cold military negotiation. Instead, he found himself sitting at a table where Mrs. Davis served homemade cookies and coffee. The elderly librarian treated the fierce alien warrior like a guest in her home. "Would you like sugar with your coffee, dear?" Mrs. Davis asked Krell while pouring from a simple ceramic pot. Krell stared at the human woman. She was smaller than his smallest finger, old enough to be fragile, and completely unafraid of him. Yes, please." As Mrs. Davis stirred sugar into his coffee, Krell noticed something strange. The liquid was warm. The room smelled like flowers from the garden outside. The human children playing in the next room were laughing. For the first time in his 300-year life, Ambassador Krell understood what humans had been fighting for. The peace treaty was unlike any document in galactic history. Instead of territorial agreements and military restrictions, it established something new: the right to have a home. Tom O'Brien, still wearing his bartender's apron, stood up to address the alien representatives. "Here is what we learned from this war," he said. "Home is not about owning land. Home is about having a place where people care about each other." He gestured around the community center, where human children were showing alien visitors their drawings, and elderly humans were sharing stories with species they had been fighting just days before. "You are welcome to stay for dinner," Tom continued. "Mrs. Chun is making her famous stew, and there is always room for more people at our table." In the months that followed, the galaxy changed in ways no one had expected. The concept of permanent homes became protected under galactic law. Species that had wandered space for millennia began building settlements on empty worlds. The collective, which had always moved as one giant hive, started experiencing something new. Individual drones began choosing to stay in places they found beautiful instead of moving with the main group. For the first time in their species' history, some members of the collective decided they wanted to watch the same sunset every night. The Empire's war machines were converted into construction equipment. General Borg himself led a project to build the first permanent Empire settlement in over 1,000 years. He discovered that creating things was more satisfying than destroying them. The ancient beings, older than most stars, began teaching younger species how to build homes that would last for generations. They shared construction techniques that could create buildings strong enough to survive the rise and fall of civilizations. But the most important change was smaller and more personal. Throughout the galaxy, when any species faced the threat of losing their homes, they would ask themselves a simple question that had become famous across all worlds: what would the humans do? The answer was always the same: they would stay. They would fight not with hatred, but with love for the places and people they wanted to protect. They would turn their neighbors into family worth defending. The humans had taught the galaxy that the strongest force in the universe was not technology or weapons or ancient wisdom. It was the simple, stubborn refusal to give up on the places where you belonged and the people who made those places worth calling home.